Hi guys, and welcome to part 2 on this Ford Escort RS Turbo Respray. So in part 2 we're going to be going through the base coat application, and the colour for this is Ford Mercury Grey. So as you can see, all the shell and everything's been remasked. So since the last video, basically what I've done is I've blocked the whole car out with a 240 on the long block on all the flat edges, and then we did the full car, a DA with a P400 all over. And then because I haven't got any little 1000 hand pads in yet, I've just gone over it with the grey scotch wet all over, and then unmasked it, give it a good clean down, a good clean out, and remask the whole car. Now for the base coat wise, we're going to use the Iwata Bellairia. It's a 1.3 setup, really good gun for base coat, and I'm using this because I've got the Lumalite for it, so when I come to do the drop coats and the coverage check and everything in a bit, it's going to be really handy to just pop the light on and give all the give it a good check over, make sure everything's nice and even, and make sure that everything's good to go. So this was also really the first sort of big test for the booth. I have to say, on this shell on the base coat side, it performed really well. There was no dirt in it whatsoever, and it kept the job really nice and clean. There wasn't much lingering overspray during the base coat stage. There was a tiny bit during the clear coat stage, but to be quite honest, bearing in mind this booth wasn't really designed or meant to be doing resprays in, I think it really did handle it quite well. Now booth wise, I've actually got the booth set on its second fan setting, so it's not running full whack. I wanted to give the booth a nice test, just so we could see sort of like where we're up to with the booth and what the airflow etc is like. So starting off on the job, we're using solvent base coat. Mobihel's the brand. I know a few of you guys in the UK use this. It's not a bad base coat really. It's not too high in price. Most colours do cover pretty well in this. Some of the colours like the whites and reds seem to take all week to put on, and you have to put a lot of coats of them on. But a colour like this, a couple of coats, and if you're doing like a newer car and you can put it down really nice and wet, then I'm talking like 2 really heavy coats plus a drop coat over the top, just to make sure that metallic's nice and even, and you're pretty much good to go with this stuff. So on this job, as you remember, if you've seen the first stage, which is the primer stage, what I've done with this is I primed the whole car because in its lifetime it's had a lot of paint. We've then blocked the whole car down so it's all really nice and flat. Now the issue with having a lot of paint over the years is there's a lot of potential for stuff to start reacting, stuff start frying up because of the different paint types that are underneath. So when I did this job, what I did was I used the quartz filler primer, went over the whole car with full coat over all the repairs, and then 3 wet coats over the top of that, so there's a nice build there. Then we've blocked it all out with the 240 on the long block, so basically just try and get it nice and flat. Then we've done the 400, and then we've done a little bit wet to finish it off, so it was ready for the base coat stage. Now there was a few little tiny rub throughs, so what I did was mixed a little bit of the quartz, wet on wet if you will. Basically mixed it 4 to 1 with hardener, and then to 1 again with thinners, which left it nice and thin. Popped it in the Bellairia, wound the needle in quite a bit, so it was just a really nice light dust, just to seal up any of them little areas where it's burnt through, because then we're going to be massive areas where there's a huge potential for things to start frying up and that we could start getting issues. So another way of trying to prevent the fry ups on this car and any reaction issues whatsoever with any of that base coat underneath is basically not to throw this base coat down really heavy and really wet. It is going to take you a little bit longer, but as far as the job goes, I would rather spend an extra half hour, 40 minutes in the booth doing it this way, doing medium wet coats, so that I'm not putting too much solvent in there at a time, letting it flash out nicely before I put the next coat on, and then going in and putting another medium wet coat until I've got the coverage that I need. That way it's not too wet, and we're going to reduce the chance of anything reacting anywhere to a pretty much the minimum we can, really. And that's my method of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, you know, like, I mean, if you or some of the lads at the moment, they're using water base, which I don't know, would be something that I'm just sorting out at the moment. Then water base, you've got hardly any issues with, you've got zero issues with fry ups and stuff like that. The only sort of reaction you can get really is if you get any oil or water based contaminants on the car anywhere before you start spraying or during the paint job, that could cause issues then. So just to be on the safe side, we're going around and we're basically going to put down this medium wet coat. That way I can just, in my own mind, know that I'm doing it in the safest way, that I'm going to get the nicest possible finish to this job when, you know, when everything's done, it's flat and polished and everything's looking nice. And plus, at this stage, if you get something now that starts reacting and that starts pickling up and crinkling, then, you know, you're into a lot of time and a lot of effort to redo that section just so you can do it. So I think to do it this way is the safest option. So I've skipped forward here now. This is the third medium wet coat that we're putting down. As you can see now, it looks really well covered. It doesn't take long with a colour like this. You know, it's a dark colour. We're not putting it down too heavy just to be on the safe side. And we're just going to put 3 to 4 down instead of medium wet ones, instead of like 2 really wet coats. So at this stage, you know, we're pretty much bang on and there, if I'm honest with you. The base coat was going down really nice. I have to say, the airflow must be a bit better than it seems in this booth, because it was not the warmest of days, but it wasn't the coldest of days either. And the base coat was flashing off really nice. I ended up with, on this car, with no reaction whatsoever on any of the shell or the panel work that we've done. You know, it did come up really nice. So it was a safe bet to do it this way. And I think sometimes it's one of them things, when you've been painting a while, you kind of know in your mind that there's a good chance that a car like this that's a bit older, that's had a lot of paint and a lot of different types of paint in its life, sometimes it's better just to be safe than sorry and do it the way that you know is going to work. Now you might notice during this video, same as the first video on this car, that I'm still playing a lot with the regulator, trying to keep the pressure nice. That's nothing to do with the compressor or anything like that. It's just with everything in this place being new. Got a new compressor, new regulator, new regulators on the guns and everything. Trying to get everything set up right and just get everything in that sort of right click so that the pressure was staying nice down the lines. It took me a couple of attempts. By the time we ended up at sort of like to this stage where we'd got to the end of the panel work on this car, I had everything dialed in really nice. And now it's set up. Probably about a week on from this video. Really nice. Got no pressure flux in the line whatsoever. The air compressor that gtair.co.uk sent us out is really performing really well. It's a 150 litre air compressor, and it runs, I think it's just a touch over 14 CFM, and I think roughly the retail price on it is around £350, and that's UK. And I have to say, for that kind of money, you cannot fault this compressor. It's not really loud like some compressors. It keeps up with this Bellairia when it's running full whack clearing at 2 bar without an issue whatsoever. Now I've got my gauges set up and my regulators and everything set up nice. There is no drop, you know, you don't even get a 2 psi drop down the lines. It really does run really well. So and that is something that I'm going to be doing a separate video on as well, because I've been asked a lot about compressors and what sort of CFM ratings you need and what sort of size you need for spraying and stuff like that. So I am going to put up soon a dedicated video just on our air compressors and the kind of setup that I'm running on mine at the moment, just so you guys can see. And you guys can see that, yeah, it might not as yet be the most perfect setup, because I'm still running it all down flexible lines. I haven't got any fixed lines in yet. I need to get a decent regulator really and get that fitted to the wall properly. But you'll see that even with a half decent setup, you really can put out a really nice job. I mean, the biggest thing for me that I would say is your compressor. You need to make sure you've got a good compressor, because that is the lifeline of your air supply while you're doing your whole job. So if that's going up and down and that's fluxing, or you've not got enough air there and you're having to wait for the tank to recharge, that's just no good for you. But like I said, when we get to the next video, when we get to the chance to make a video on the air compressor, then I'll make sure I go through all that and all the setup that I run, and also why I run what I do. Right guys, so back to the job in hand then. Sorry if you think I've babbled on a bit there about different things, but just having a general chit chat in the video. So yeah, back to the job in hand. This is the end now of the third medium wet coat that we've put on here. Now, I went round this with the Lumilite, just had a quick check over, and just wanted to put one last fourth medium wet coat over the car, just to be that extra little bit safe, that everything's covered, that everything's nice and even. Because the one thing that you don't want is, obviously, because we're putting it down as a medium wet coat rather than a full wet coat, you don't want anything being a little bit patchy because you're not getting a full wet coverage, or anything that's not quite covered because you're not putting down a full wet coverage coat each time. So once this section of the video switches over, I will then put a fourth medium wet coat on it. So basically you have put your 2 full wet coats on it. You've just split it over 4 just to make the job a little bit safer as far as the solvent base coat going down on the old lacquers. And who knows what kind of lacquers underneath there. It could be 2K, it could be 1K. You know, you're never going to know. So it's just worth, for me, for safety's sake, put a lot of time in the prep, put a lot of time in the primer work, getting this all repaired up so we can get the shell absolutely mint. The one thing that I want to do now is get it painted once and get it painted right and get it a nice clean job. I don't want to have to think, right, there's a massive bit there that's reacted, I'm going to have to spend that, you know, take it out of the booth, sort all that big section out, reprime it, reblock it, get it back in the next day and start painting it again. I'd rather just get it done the first time and have it done right. Right, so that's the final stage really of the main part of the actual coverage application that I've put down on the base coat of the shell. The next stage that I'm just going to show you is the first drop coat. So basically what I've done with the first drop coat is added a touch more thinners, and all I'm going to do is go a little bit further away and a little bit higher pressure just to drop this coat down so there's a nice even spread of the metallic. So whether it's a metallic or it's a pearl or anything like that, all we're doing here really is just ensuring that when this goes down now, that all those metallic particles are nice and even and landing, so that everything's got a nice even look and a nice even finish. Because I've seen it before on something like a silver one where someone's hammered it down in wet coats, not put a drop coat over the top, and you almost end up with bands and lines going through the surface of your metallics because they're where your gun was running really heavy. So coming that little bit further away, as you can see, I've got it atomizing a little bit finer just by tweaking the pressure up the tiniest little bit, and I've put a touch more thinners in it. So literally this is going down as almost like a real dry dust over the top. You can see it there. It's, you know, barely wet. You're just putting it down really nice so you get an even nice distance away, so you're reducing any risk now of putting any bands or any lines or anything like that on it. And that for me is how I do my drop coats. I've always done my drop coats this way and I've never had much of an issue. The only time that I'll ever do it slightly different is that, say, if I'm doing a repair job on a car, then I turn the pressure down a bit, come away a bit, so it reduces the risk of overspray over the blend areas. So guys, this is about it for part 2 on the base coat application on this Ford RS Turbo. If you've got any questions or anything like that, please, as always, comment in the box below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Some of them are a bit longer than others, some of them do take a bit of replying to. I will get back to everyone at some point, but you just have to bear with me because some of the questions take a bit of time to get it all written out and get it into YouTube, whereas some are nice short questions, and I can just answer them off my phone, so it's not as bad. So hope you guys have found this useful. You can see here that I'm just using the Luma light as well. I forgot to mention that. I'm just using this because it's, while you're using this, it does give you a real good indication of how your metallic's looking on the car as you're actually doing the job, as opposed to going around with a sun gun or something similar to that and checking afterwards. You can check as you are painting on the coverage, the application, and also how even your metallics and all that sort of stuff is going down at the time. So it does really give you a good gauge of just how clean your paint job is. It doesn't show up as well as I'd hope on camera, but when you're in the booth, I can rest assure you this does really show the complete finish of your metallic and everything in the surface of your base coat. Right guys, so that's it for me for part 2. In part 3 I'm going to go through the clear coat application, and we'll have a little look at how the booth ran with the clear coat application stage as well. And also, if you haven't already seen it, a lot of you guys were asking me for a flat and polishing video, and I did do a flat and polishing video on this, which is already up and ready to view, and I'll leave a little link for that in the description at the end of the video for you. So thanks for watching guys. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Loads of new videos coming up and loads of new stuff in the pipeline. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.